I genetically altered a billionaire's son. I wish I hadn't. Written by N.S. Lewis. $10 million. They say everybody has a price, and that was apparently mine. That's what it took for me to abandon all ethics, caution, and respect for human life. It wasn't worth it. Not even close. Mr. Minkowski sat across from me, my cluttered office desk between us.
I want you to fix my son,
he said, looking me directly in the eyes. It was silly, but I felt like I was back on the schoolyard 40 years ago, getting stared down by the class bully just before he pantsed me. I shook my childish intimidation away. Mr. Minkowski was a billionaire, but he was still just a man. And he was in my office, not the other way around. And what's wrong with your son? I asked.
What isn't wrong with the little shit? For starters, he's a goddamn runt. Asthma and big glasses and buck teeth and you fucking name it. Okay, so you'd think the kid would at least be smart, right? You know, he's no good at sports, not a chance with the girls. So you'd think he'd bury his big-ass crooked nose in books. Maybe get into computer programming, shit like that. Well, you'd be wrong. The little fucker is dumb as a brick. Barely knows his multiplication table. 8th grade reading level. He's 15 years old, Doc.
I shifted in my seat. I presume he has some disorder that makes him a candidate for gene therapy?
That's the thing, Doc,
Mr. Minkowski said, keeping his eyes locked on mine.
We've had him tested and tested. There's nothing wrong with him. Other than the asthma and every fucking allergy known to man. There's nothing wrong with him. And yet, there's everything wrong with him, you see? He just ended up with all the shit genes, that's all. He got unlucky. But you know what? When you've got the money that I've got, luck doesn't mean as much. That's where you come in.
I'm sorry that you wasted a trip down, Mr. Minkowski. But if your son doesn't have any disorder that's been approved for gene therapy, then I'm afraid...
Not talking about gene therapy, Doc. I'm talking GTCA, final phase, CRISPR.
I frowned. How do you know about final phase? Mr. Minkowski smiled.
Oh, I see. You think because it's a top secret government project, I couldn't possibly know about it? Doc, I am the fucking government. Nothing happens in this country that I don't at least know about, and most of the time it happens because I say it happens. So I want you to put my idiot son in the CRISPR, or however the hell you do it, and I really don't care how you do it, Doc, and fix him. Change all of his genes to the good ones.
That's not how it works, I said, looking down at my desk. His stare had become unbearable. In certain cases, simple Mendelian diseases, well, that is the entire goal of the project. We could possibly do something for your son, even at his age. But what you're talking about complex polygenetic traits that we're not even close to understanding.
Cut the bullshit, Doc. I've read the articles. You think I haven't done my research? That I'm an idiot like my subnormal son? You guys have found hundreds of IQ genes. Hundreds of height genes. I'm not asking for a super genius NBA star. I know you haven't found them all yet, but you've found enough to make a difference.
I lifted my eyes and returned his gaze. I'm afraid that you're mistaken, Mr. Minkowski. There have been numerous genome-wide studies that, yes, find statistically significant associations between certain variants and phenotype outcomes. I want to stress that word, associations. As far as we know, there is absolutely no causal relationship between these variants and the outcomes.
Well, it's the best shot I've got for fixing my embarrassment of a son. So I want you to go ahead and do it.
You're not listening, sir. We don't know what will happen if we start messing with thousands of variants in your son's genetic code. We're not even close to understanding what exactly the function of these variants are, or how they interact with others.
$10 million,
said Mr. Minkowski.
That's just for you, Doc. I'll cover whatever other expenses there are, of course. $10 million fucking dollars. You got that? That's a chunk of change even for me. But I figure the ROI is gonna be pretty high. This little shithead will bankrupt me and blow the family fortune unless you fix him. I know it.
The mention of $10 million had made me lightheaded. Still, I kept my composure. You do understand that there is absolutely no way to tell what will happen to your son if we do this, right? The most likely outcome, I'm afraid, is that he will not come back alive from the procedure.
I'm okay with that,
he said.
And don't worry about if shit hits the fan. I'll have my lawyers draw something up, absolving you of all responsibility. I know there's some risks, but Jesus Christ, Doc. Once you see this little shithead, you'll understand. He's worthless. I gotta try to fix him. It's my fatherly duty.
In retrospect, it is clear to me that Devin Minkowski did not have the mental acuity to consent to the procedures. Of course he didn't. Even if his IQ had been considerably higher, what 15-year-old boy can wrap his brain around the complexity of his genetic code? Most adults can't do that. Nevertheless, when Devin agreed to the procedure, saying that he just wanted me to fix what was wrong with him, and he didn't care if he died, I told myself that he was willingly consenting. The money had bound and gagged my conscience, which should have been screaming in horror at the atrocity I was about to commit. Instead, I told myself that I have a family to think about too, and if the child wants the procedure, despite the risks, then I am doing a clear good. It is incredible how easy it is to rationalize away the worst actions. The treatments went on for a year, and on the last day of them, I hid away in the bathroom and cried tears of relief that Devin had made it through alive. I knew that we weren't out of the woods yet, but the fact that he had survived in the first place did wonders to relieve whatever was left of my conscience. I dried my eyes and returned to my office, where Mr. Minkowski was waiting for me.
Gotta say, Doc, part of me wonders, did you even do shit, or have you been putting me on this whole time? Fucking kid still looks exactly the same, still dumb as a sack of flour. So tell me right now, and I'll know if you're full of shit. Have you been jerking me around?
I assure you, Mr. Minkowski, the procedure was a success from my end. You can easily compare Devin's before and after SNPs and see for yourself. As I told you from the start, the outcome of this procedure will be completely unknown. It was always quite possible, as I have explained, that there would be no observable change in Devin. If there is a change, it is likely to take some time to manifest. DNA, as you know, is instruction and not completed construction.
I just wasted $20 fucking million, didn't I?
Said Mr. Minkowski, frowning.
Nothing happened. God damn it!
Oh, how I wish that nothing had happened. At his 1-month checkup, it was apparent that Devin's hair was growing lighter, from a deep red to a rusty blonde. Freckles were disappearing from his face. By month 2, his vision was growing sharper, and he needed a weaker prescription. By the 3rd month, he had grown 4 inches taller and was now able to wear contact lenses. His hair was completely blonde, and most of his freckles were gone. It went on and on like this. His asthma cleared up. His grades improved dramatically. He kept growing taller and taller and came to have 20/20 vision. Somehow, his teeth even straightened out. I was amazed, and Mr. Minkowski was delighted. We convinced ourselves over a $3,000 bottle of scotch that we had just made the most important scientific breakthrough in the history of mankind. No more disease, No more maladies.
No more stupid people.
As he put it, the possibilities were incredible to imagine. But still, there was the smallest part of me that would not let me rest easy. That part shut up completely when Mr. Minkowski announced that he was giving me a $5 million bonus.
You earned it, Doc. Goddamn miracle worker. And who knows how many millions, billions you saved me in bailing that kid out of trouble. So take it, and take ownership of this. I know we're still a few years out from when you can tell the world, but once you do, you're gonna be a legend, Doc.
I smiled, my head light from the scotch, the money, and the feeling of success. I felt like a legend. I sat in my office with Devin Minkowski across from me. It was the last of his monthly checkups. After that, he was set to see me only once a year. I was amazed at how completely he had been transformed in the course of a year. It was as if though the Devin sitting across from me now was a completely different Devin than the one that I had seen a year ago. He retained only a few traces of his former phenotypes.
You must be relieved, Doctor,
said Devin in his now deep, soothing voice. His stutter was completely gone. Oh, I'll miss seeing you every month, Devin.
That's not what I mean. I mean, you must be relieved that you didn't murder me. You know as well as I do that that was always the most likely outcome, given our present knowledge of genetics.
Are you not happy with the procedure, Devin?
It's funny. The one thing that hasn't changed about me is my memory. I still remember everything in that crude, impressionistic manner in which I used to experience life. I remember the day that I met you, how scared I was. But overpowering that fear was hope. Hope that if I did this, my father would finally love me.
Devin laughed.
And you know what? It worked. He loves me. He's proud of me. And it's all because of you, Doctor.
I smiled. In a few years, Devin, we'll tell the world about you. Then it won't just be your father that loves you. The whole world will. Devin returned the smile.
That will be nice. But listen, I want to thank you formally. I want to do something special for you.
That's hardly necessary.
Oh, I've been planning it for a month. Here,
he said, reaching down onto my desk for a pen and a pad. He wrote down an address in perfect handwriting.
This is our house. Be here at 6 p.m. tonight, okay? Please bring your family. You have a wife and a son of your own, right? Please bring them. Don't eat anything beforehand. It's going to be very special.
That sounds great, Devin. We'll be there. By 6:30 that evening, we were all seated at the Minkowskis' massive dining table. Devin walked around the table, pouring out a dark red wine into our glasses.
Mom?
He asked, standing in front of his own place setting.
It's okay, right? Just one glass, in celebration.
Oh, I suppose, said Mrs. Minkowski. Just one, though, Devin.
And Doctor, you wouldn't leave your son out of the toast, would you?
Please, Dad, said my son. I nodded, and Devin poured the wine in, and then went back to his seat.
A toast,
said Devin, holding up his glass.
To scientific progress and to the good doctor. Cheers,
said Mr. Minkowski. I smiled as we all clinked glasses, and then I had a sip.
I cooked dinner myself,
said Devin.
We have chefs, you know, but I dismissed them for the night. It's amazing, really. Even cooking has a genetic element to it. I don't know what it is exactly, but I can tell you that last year, well, I could hardly assemble a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
It smells delicious, said my wife. He really is amazing, said Mrs. Minkowski.
Now, Mother,
said Devin.
He really is amazing now, you mean. And before, well, before I was a piece of shit, isn't that right, Mom? Devin,
said Mr. Minkowski.
You should all probably take a breath and enjoy this moment.
said Devin.
In a few seconds, the tranquilizers will hit. Maybe you can feel them already. Oh no, Doctor. There goes your son.
I looked over as my son's head dropped, his face slamming down onto the table. I began to stand up, my heart pounding. But then it hit me too. I awoke, unable to move or close my eyes. I was sitting in a theater, staring up at a screen, which projected my own image back to me. I was bound to one of the chairs, my eyelids taped open. A device positioned above my head dropped water into my eyeballs every few seconds. There was a gag tied around the back of my head and stuffed into my mouth. The image on the screen was live footage from the camera strapped to Devin's head. Devin was standing on the floor below the screen. To one side were 4 people, also bound and gagged. My son, my wife, and Mr. and Mrs. Minkowski. To the other side was a table with a tray of surgical tools on it. I struggled to cry out, but it was no use.
Ah, the good doctor is awake,
Boomed Dennis's voice over the loudspeakers. He was talking into a headset. I watched as he walked over to the table and picked something up. On the screen, I could see what he saw. It was a scalpel. Devin picked it up and turned his head so that the image on the screen was my son. Tears were streaming down his face. My son's head grew larger on the screen as Devin approached. Then it filled the entire screen. I watched helplessly as the scalpel caressed my son's cheek. Devin pressed it down until a spot of blood appeared.
I've been studying your family, Doctor, while you slept, and here's what I've observed. Your wife, she has a truly beautiful face, but let's be honest, she's grown a little flabby down below. Meanwhile, your son's face is a bit smashed, but what a body! So athletic, like a lean and hungry animal. So I'm standing here looking at them, and it hits me. What if I cut off her head and sew it onto his body?
The camera, which had been alternating between my wife and my son, swung out back towards me, and on the screen, I saw myself pale and sweating. "No!" I screamed uselessly in my head. "Please, no!"
So I was getting ready to go ahead with the procedure. Have a nice little surprise waiting for you, Doctor, when you woke up. But then something else hits me. A real mindfuck of a question. If it's her head on his body, then who is it? Her? Him? Or something else entirely?
Devin looked again from my wife to my son, their faces, expressions of total horror.
Speaking of mindfucks,
said Devin, turning to his father. Mr. Minkowski's face appeared on the screen, trembling as much as the restraints would allow.
This guy, who is he? Is he my father? I don't know. If we went on Murray and they ran the test, what would they find? Probably that he's not my father, but he feels like my father. The man I loved for the first 15 years of my life. The man who never loved me back. But you know what? Now that he finally does love me, I don't love him. I don't want it to feel like he's my father. So I need to make a change, and I'm standing here thinking, what's the defining feature of my father? What can I change that will make him not be my father? And I've got it.
The camera slowly panned down Mr. Minkowski's body until it reached the crotch of his pants, which was saturated with urine.
It's his big fucking balls,
said Devin.
That's his defining feature. It's what he himself always attributed his success to. His big fucking balls.
I tried to turn my head away. I tried to close my eyes. I felt dizzy. I tried to will myself unconscious. None of it worked. And as I unavoidably watched Devin perform surgery on his father, I tried not to vomit, but that didn't work either. Bile leaked out around my gag and dripped down my chin. Devin worked mercifully quickly, as though this 16-year-old boy had been a skilled surgeon his entire life, and began cauterizing the wound. His work finished, he stood up and looked again at Mr. Minkowski's face, which was now unconscious from pain and shock.
So how do I feel? Well, it still feels like this asshole was my father. I'm going to have to try something else, Doctor. But what?
Devin turned back to me and began walking up the theater aisle until my own face filled the screen.
I know,
he said, the camera gazing into my eyes.
If I can't escape my father, then I want him to look like what he really is. My mother, too. I want you to turn them into pigs, Doctor. Legit, oinking, filthy pigs with snouts and everything. But keep their memories in there, like you did with me. You can do that, right, Doctor?
Devin traced the bloody scalpel over my cheek, and for a moment I prayed that he would get it over with and slit my throat. But he didn't. He moved it down and cut away my gag. I coughed the bile out of my mouth and took a deep breath.
Doctor,
he said,
tell me you can do it.
It wouldn't work, I gasped.
I have faith in you,
said Devin.
Just look at what you did to me.
It's impossible, I tried to explain. With you, I just switched around some variants, all within existing human parameters. But I can't put a human being inside a pig's body.
You can,
said Devin.
And you will, if you ever want to see your family again, I mean. I'm going to take them with me. They'll be well provided for, don't worry. In fact, they may never want to come back. But Doctor, if you fuck up, they die. Do you understand?
Yes.
That's a good doctor. I'll be taking my parents with me as well. You let me know when you're ready for them. I imagine you have some research to do. But don't take too long. No, it would be very bad if you took too long. You have 1 year.
It's been 8 months, and all I have to show for it is a sickening pile of dead mice. Once I thought I had gotten them to grow a snout, but it turned out that I had merely created a new deadly inflammatory disease. I'm at the end of my rope and near the end of my funds. My desperation has brought me to this forum. An internet search led me to a story here about a man encountering a giant chicken man that turned out to be, for reasons that I won't get into, a dead end. But as I read more stories here, I realized that people have encountered all sorts of amazing things. I am open to anything. A scientist out of the mainstream who has been performing some unnatural experiments. A witch with a spell to turn the Minkowskis into pigs. A deal with the devil even. I feel as though I've already made one, so another one won't hurt. Anything. I know that I am responsible for this ungodly situation, and I do not deserve sympathy. But my family is innocent. Please, if you know of anything that might help them out of this, let me know.